níbẹ̀ wọn ò nílé lóko. Ẹ sì kú dédé àsìkò yìí. Hey guys, it's Adirunke again. I made a video sometime 2 months ago about what the meaning of Akata is, and it has been getting a lot of attention within this past 3-4 days. And attention is good, attention is bad. There have been several really terrible comments. And some people were saying that I was smiling or laughing basically in that video, and that I wasn't supposed to laugh or giggle, and I was supposed to be very morose about making the video. So since you'd prefer that I be sad and you've given me reasons to be sad, here you have a sad speaker. Congratulations. So Akata, what does it mean? In the video I gave an example of a word. Well, I'll have you watch the first video that I made and the one that I'm referencing. I mentioned that Akata, literally the server or any kind of cat that is not domesticated. I said Ologbu and Ologini are more of cats that live in and outside the home, or like in the case of the Ologini, in the environs of the home, and sometimes in the home. I've talked about it. But the Akata is the server, or even the general name for like the panther or something. Basically cats that don't necessarily live in the city, live on the outskirts, right? That is what the word in and of itself, simply put, is. Let's go into what humans take it to mean, because humans are funny. I think it's quite ridiculous that we would have an incarnation and we would be destined to spend, let's say, 70 or 80 years in life, and instead of focusing on the reasonable, like in your previous life, you could have been Caucasian, you could have been Asian, you could have been European, whatever, and you come into this lifetime as let's say an African American, and instead of looking at the big picture of why you're alive in the first place, or why anybody is even alive in the first place, and what lessons being alive at this time is supposed to teach you or teach anybody, whoever they are, you sort of choose to hate. I really don't understand humans, and I don't understand it. Akata, what does it mean? What I've told you what it means. What do people take it to mean? It's a very fluid word. If I was to return to Nigeria, people would call me Akata. They would say, Ronketi Dakata. Let's say there are some Yorùbá words that I can't pronounce properly anymore, or there are some rough parts that I used to be able to visit, but I can't visit anymore. People will call me Akata, which is more or less, someone who's exposed to privileged foreign lands, someone who is now different, sort of a bad and bougie person who has sort of returned to show off and show out. I've now become an Akata. I'm now rolling with the big people. Even if I'm not rolling with the big people, I'm now a big person in essence. Now, let's backtrack a little bit for those who are going to take offense at the rough parts that I mentioned. By rough parts, I'm using bougie language. Let's say there's a local market where the floor is always mushy. You always have mud, and it's almost always, because those markets are not often paved. They are not Walmart, right? They're usually in an area, and the floors are often, are often like a mixture of sand and water. So it's always muddy or mushy. Let's say that I can't go there anymore. Let's say I can't bargain anymore. I don't know how to, is it haggle, or what is the exact word? I don't know. In Nigeria, the typical culture is if you are to buy something if someone tells you something is 50 naira, especially when they're hawking or it's like a local area, you're supposed to ask them, well, can you take 40? Like, even if you don't know how much it goes for, it's almost a part of the culture to ask for a deduction in price. For some reason, most of the time, they take a part of that, let's say they tell you to take it for 45 naira. I don't know if I said dollars earlier. Naira, and you have it for that price. So it's almost the culture. Now, if I go home and something that costs 50 naira, instead of me to go to the local place where I could get it for 50 naira or even 5 naira, he would be quite surprised. I decide to walk into, what's the name of one of the bougie stores in Nigeria? There's like a big mall. I don't remember. And I get it for 150. That's how much it goes up. Because, the amount is nothing to me anymore. I can afford it. Conveniently, let's say it's less than $1, in Canadian dollars or American dollars. I'm now one of the Akatas. I'm now bad and bougie. I'm now showing off and I'm showing out, right? I'm now one of the Akatas. I'm one of the big people. I don't roll that way anymore. So when someone calls me that, it's almost like they're teasing me. They're saying, hey, this Akata girl, you're just showing out type thing. That is when it is used in the somewhat positive and somewhat teasy way, teasy in quotes. Let me just quickly say, for the Africans or the Nigerians more specifically that are outside the country, when you return to Nigeria, instead of spending your money in companies that, one, are not necessarily even managed by Nigerians or owned by Nigerians, and don't necessarily give back in substantial ways, buy your bottle of soft drink or your juice or whatever you need from Mommy Salamotu that is selling it by the corner, or Daddy Taufik that needs it to send his child to school. You don't need to make the rich richer. People who literally need some kind of income to keep their family going, to save themselves from poverty, you can buy it from them, and usually you would even get it cheaper. So please, especially if it is not necessary for you to spend that much money in a store just to show out with Mommy Sadiq. Sadiq will forever be thankful for the amount that you spent. It will give him an education. Just going to say that. Use this opportunity to say that. Moving on. Outside the country, and more specifically in America, this word is taken to be a bad word. Almost always. People think it has this N-word effect, and even when you search the word on Google, the first result that you get is negative. So I can see where people are coming from. I can see why anybody would be angry about the word. But this is what it really, forget about everything that you've ever learned about what it means. If you really want to know the truth, this is the video to watch and to reference. In the positive sense, when it is being used to refer to an African in America or an African American, I use those terms not necessarily because they are politically correct or because they are the terms that I would rather use, but because I guess that is a bit more descriptive. Whether you're using that word to reference either an African in America, particularly a Nigerian or an African American, you are referencing, first of all, that they're African. You're referencing that they belong to a group. If you're a cat and you live among the sheep, it doesn't change the fact that you're a cat. You may not know how to act like a cat. You may bleat like the sheep. But when you see the rest of the cats, you're like, yeah, these people look like me. There's a connection here. Even if you can't relate to them, even if you can't stand them, still doesn't change the fact that you're a cat. So first of all, when you're using that word, you're referencing that someone belongs to a particular community or someone. It's a black skin that unites us. We share that connection and we share the continent Africa, first of all. And you're also referencing that person doesn't live within the confines anymore. They are now living in a better place. So if life is better with the sheep, for example, or the deer, for example, and a cat decides to live with them and sort of learns their ways and makes his abode there, and he can't relate to how to be a cat, life is better for him. The other cats may even want the life that he's living. Maybe he has better resources or has access to the deer dollars or the sheep dollars and is worth much more than cat currency worth. They've become an Akata. They're different now. They're rolling with, the sheep, right? So they have more exposure. They've left the cat community. They've left. So in the human sense, I guess using metaphors may not help. In the human sense, you're saying that this person, they have international exposure. They probably have access to, a better currency or a better life. And they're able to show off and show out. In that sense, it's not, you're saying this, my brother, we use it to reference fellow Nigerians and African Americans, basically black people, in the sense that it is used, when it is used positively, it is like, oh, this one of us that is now, it's almost like you're, to the average Nigerian, there is Nigeria and then there is America, and right on top of America, there's heaven. So it's almost like the hierarchy of a good life. So when you as a Nigerian or you as an African American have access to that life, it's almost like, wow, you are Akata now. You can't relate to us. So your perspective on things has changed and you're different. See, African languages are complex. They're like there's literally no way except you understand the language to clearly see that there's nothing inherently negative about the word. Someone who is outside, internal lands and is in foreign lands and is not necessarily a resident of the place, so may not know much about the place anymore, or may not be able to relate to some things. Forget about the cat explanation now. This is in practice what it is used to infer. Now, a lot of people who have gone to Nigeria for, let's say, initiations into whatever deity that, those who know all about that, who sort of protects their head or guides their path, will tell you that in essence, Akata doesn't even really mean anything like that. And when it is used to infer, like as an inference, it's not used in the negative sense. It is what I said, you're different, you're exposed to foreign lands, you're not like the locals, right? You're bad and bougie. It's just, like I said, a serval, a panther, whatever big cat, not necessarily big in size, but whatever cats live on the outskirts in the bush, non-domesticated, right? What some people would even call wild. Any animal that is non-domesticated, we tend to call them wild. That's basically the inference. Who has now come home, who has now come into the city, they're like, oh, they're different, they're bigger than the regular. They're here to show off and show out. That is the positive sense. That is the positive sense. In the video, I was saying that in the example of it being used to refer to African American women, it's often in the sense of unsubmissive and fierce. A typical fella's lady, she will sit where the men sits, and she would, if a husband tells her to shut up, he would definitely be told to shut up as well. She's unsubmissive and she's fierce. She will talk back. She's not kole poloju, essentially in Yorùbá. She doesn't care. She believes that she's equal to the man and to his relatives. So the typical African woman is, well, even if she isn't timid, right? Even if she's an Aries or something, by her very nature, she's expected to be, just try to be timid and try to be shy and like when you see your neighbors, pretend like you don't talk too much. And there's still that stereotype of who a good wife is, directly or indirectly. So she's not like that. she will look anybody in the eye, and she's not going to pretend. She's not submissive. She doesn't believe that the husband is the head, or it has to be. In some cases, that may not always be the case. Again, it's a fluid word. Whatever you want it to mean, it will mean. Akata could also be someone who is un-African in behavior and speech. Like in the example that I gave, maybe this person they may look African, right? But they can't really relate to anything African. They don't know any African language. They've not been to any parts of Africa. They know that their ancestors and some other Africans were probably brothers and sisters before they were separated, whether by force or by intentional migration several centuries ago. But that's about what they know, and many times they won't even accept it. They'd rather tell themselves that perhaps they're Aboriginal, or they're a Native American, so to speak, or that their ancestors have always lived in America, instead of accepting that they might have some connection with this continent. Basically, that's another sense. Basically, it's someone who might be un-African in behavior and speech when it is used in the not negative but not positive sense. It's not when you say, Akata, that person is an Akata. They are not African. They are not, like, don't try to speak Yorùbá to them, or try to, use the African lingo. They don't know what you're saying. Don't even bother. That they are an Akata. So that is an example of when Akata will be used. So it's not inherently negative or positive. It's just neutral, right? In the instance that I gave of the African American woman being unsubmissive and fierce, and she would talk back at you if you talk back. It's not positive or negative as well. It's neutral. What if you think it's positive? For me, I think it's positive. I think it's about time that African women began to see themselves as equal to the men. I think it's positive. If you, a typical traditionalist, says, it's negative, women should always look up to their husband, well, then it would be negative for you, So there's no fixed meaning to that. An African who has been away from Africa for so long, they cannot speak an African language, they cannot relate, they don't know the manners, they don't know the traditions, they literally don't care for going on your 2 knees when you see an elder, they literally don't care for calling anyone who's older than them daddy, uncle, mommy, like they will call them their name. That's when it is used in a neutral sense. So in the somewhat negative sense, it would be, you don't know anything African. I know African values, I know African traditions, I know African language, and you are an Akata. That's when it would be used in the sort of discriminatory sense. This person just looks African. They don't know anything about Africa. They are not like us. They are not African like us. They don't know basically any traditions. They don't have any traditional attires. They basically just wear whatever the stores are selling. They don't know anything about the ro, the buba, the kembe, the agbada, so they can't relate to the tradition. It's almost, when I mentioned uncultured in that video, I didn't mean it in the sense of not cultured, not respectful, it's just someone who doesn't know the culture, who can't relate to many things about the culture. They know that their ancestors might have had that culture, but they don't care for that culture really. So that is when it would be used in the negative sense. And some people would even say, how is that negative? Like, it is what it is. Back in was it the 50s or the 60s, or when, in what year were the Panthers, what decade were the Black Panthers most active? If you ask some of the members of the Black Panther Party that came to Nigeria, or even Ghana, several parts of Africa then, just to reconnect to the roots, sort of meet the people, sort of, I guess, juice themselves up to continue in the fight for equality in America. Many of them actually they took the word Akata as synonymous to the panther. And Akata is literally a metaphorical name for cats that don't live within the city. So, cats that live on the outskirts, non-domesticated cats, like I was saying earlier, wild, not in the sense of wild, but just not domesticated, big cats, even not necessarily in size, but big in the sense of not being domesticated. They liked it when they were called that because it meant that they were defiant. It insinuated that they were different, that they were fierce, that they were protectors of the smaller cats, that they belonged in the same category with. And indeed, the Black Panthers were the self-made protectors of the Black community. It wasn't that, the white people made them, protect your people. No, they had to sort of know what their rights were legally, get the right arms, get the right licenses, read the right books, make the right petitions to get there. So it was a journey. So to them it was a thing of pride to be called that. How on earth it has now become the N-word, the African way of saying N-word, the N-word, or slave, or like I've seen many ridiculous things. And in the video I didn't know that people until I started getting threats. I didn't think people would be that mad about just knowing what it meant. So if you really, not just someone who has read something stupid online and they just want to make a quick buck, or they want to rile people up, people who don't have anything to offer the earth, bringers of negative energy. And there's a particular video on this platform that, how would you allow that negative thing? Like, why would you want to rile people up to make it seem like, it's an Africans versus African Americans fair? That's not fair. That's not, like, you're going to die someday. And is this the kind of energy that you want to pass on to people and to children? Do you know how many people are good? Like, once somebody learns something, chances are they're going to react with what they've learned. They're going to share that. And if you know that what you're saying is not correct, then why say that? This particular person was saying that, they're saying that, it's the, like, literally the Nigerians' way of saying the N. And there's so much anti-Nigerian content on that platform. Like, why would you do that? It's not fair. It's not right. Akata went from being a cool description, with the meanings that I gave, to this word that, when people hear you say, they literally want to shoot you. It's like when you take the N word, you could be using it as a term of endearment. Man, whatever. And you could be using it as, this bum ass, whatever. You could be using it as a means of discrimination. Even if you have the same, even if you're black as well, it doesn't mean. You may be using it as a term of discrimination. Some people will say, dark skin versus light skin. Like, we still have so many. To be honest, I wish we would just cancel this earth and start again. We started so badly, so maybe we should just cancel it. If there was a way that some higher beings could cancel it and let us start again, well, I guess the same things will repeat themselves. So maybe there's no point. But I wish we would not be so blind to the truth. It's not inherently negative. It's not inherently positive. It's just a description. If you intend it to be negative, if you intend it to be positive, it's almost like the intention always matters. It's just like if you call someone a cat, you could be saying, let's say someone calls me a cat. They could be saying that I'm gentle or I'm independent, for example. What are the other characteristics of cats? Or that I like attention? Or what? If someone calls me a cat and they intend that to mean, in comparison to the dog, then it may mean, maybe I'm not as affectionate. Maybe I'm standoffish. Maybe I'm rude, because cats like to stand up for themselves. So maybe I'm that. But it all depends. Like the N word, like any word, it all depends. This is not the N word. This has absolutely, I've told you what it means. It has absolutely nothing to do with the N word. So my advice is, at the end of the day, for those who have been, because people are always going to think it's offensive. People don't really want to know what the actual word is or what it infers. Please don't call anybody this anymore. Like, I can't stop people, but this is just an advice. Try as much as possible. This is not me rational. Some people have been called this in the negative sense, and I definitely see where they're coming from. And I really, really apologize on behalf of the person who called you this, whether they intended it to be positive or negative. I apologize. But if you really, really want to know what it is, this is it. Don't call anybody Akata. They have names, right? Don't even use it as a term of endearment. Don't use the N-word. Don't call anybody your Wiga. Don't use it. It's not necessary. They have names. They are not your Wiga. Call them another name, right? Let's save ourselves the trouble. Don't, try to avoid these words that tend to have negative and positive. Use neutral words at the end of the day so that everybody can live in peace. And when we die, some people in less than 60 years, some people in less than 70 years, we can somehow have improved the earth instead of argued about stupid things that don't even make any sense in the bigger sphere. In the next 100 years, nobody's going to really care about, except you do something extraordinary, nobody is really going to care about your existence if this is what you're focusing on instead of positive things. Why don't we as Africans and African Americans focus on Afrofuturism, focus on our history, try to come together again? I know some people are already doing this. But people are already coming to Nigeria to find out more about, thank God for this ancestry.ca thing. People are coming home, and people are leaving home to explore foreign lands, and they're making it here. Why don't we embrace Afrofuturism? There's some, I actually didn't check online. So, I just checked 2 or 3, blogs, and I saw the wrong meanings, and I said, oh, this isn't what it means, I actually found it funny that they interpreted it. But when I got to YouTube and I saw all the negative comments, all the dark energies that is just floating in the surface, and people are just swallowing and letting into their body, regarding what this word means, I found it really shocking. That's not what it means. Let's us as Africans and African Americans repair our history. Let's find a common place. Let's teach each other. This is what you missed, and this is what I missed. This is what this word means, and let's learn each other's languages. Let's help each other. Let's produce new content, whether artistic content or, thank God for people like Michael Jackson that did his part with the music, or through acting or whatever. Let's come together. Let's embrace one another. We can't keep doing this. We have to repair our history. We have to find a common ground. We can't keep saying, oh, I'm not African. Those Africans, those Nigerians, they're this, they're that. We literally share the same answer. There's sort of this impression that, oh, African king and queen, and those who were taken away as slaves were the only ones that suffered. You will be surprised that for many Africans that remained in Africa, although you cannot even compare. You cannot compare what our great grandmothers or grand aunts or grand uncles or whatever connection we share with them suffered. Those in Africa, many people in Africa didn't have it easy as well. There was colonization, there were many wars, there were many diseases, there was a lot of things going on. You can't compare. People think, oh, everybody was a king and a queen and everybody had it easy. That is not true. That is not true. So instead of us to help one another heal, that's one of the reasons why I do this in the first place, even talk about anything on this channel, as shy as I am. Instead of us to find a bridge and come together and help one another and say enough is enough, let's rewrite our history, let's embrace, there's the Black Panther movie, whatever artistic thing, whatever it is that can bridge that gap, instead of us to embrace that, we are doing this. This is what was done decades ago, and we're still doing this. When are we going to move on from this? When is the healing going to begin? And why are some people so resistant to the healing? We are one. There's no need to discriminate. We are one. We literally have the same blood running in our veins. We may not speak the same language, even if you're African and you were not born. Well, most black people are African, whether they know anything about Africa or not. And I know I'm going to get a lot of backlash for that. Sorry in advance or whatever, but we share the same blood. The same blood is running in our veins. Why don't we see? I mean, many people already do. It would be unfair to say why don't we, because then you're not acknowledging those who have. But why don't we see ourselves as one? You know, don't pay attention to the ridiculous content that you're seeing online. It's not true. This is what it means. This is the truth, you know. So that's about all I have to say. If you have any questions, please ask me. I will be deleting negative comments. I have been deleting negative comments, and that actually gives someone my password to do it for me. The same will apply on this one. I'll give them the link to this one so that they can monitor it. Well, they would get notifications on their phone. So even before I get to it, they would have deleted it. So I don't have to get depressed over how much hate I'm getting. Because I've never been hated this much before for simply making a video. So just be rest assured that whatever negative thing you write, if I feel that it's not helping, I'm going to moderate this channel, and I'm good. If you feel that, you know, this doesn't sit right with you, or what I've said, you know, doesn't help, you would still prefer that it means something negative because it's what you've always known and you rather not know the truth, you might as well use the dislike button. I'd really appreciate that, but please, not the comments. Absolutely not. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day and goodbye.